Peace, peace, Black people. How are y'all doing this Sunday evening, Father's Day? Happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there, you protective, providing fathers. Happy Father's Day. Happy Father's Day to all of the fathers who are on the other side of the veil that reside in the ancestral land, but you are still providing and protecting your children. So happy Father's Day. It's good to be Black in the land of the living once again. And I had to come on and do this um, because I've been mad since yesterday. And so I said, well, let me get it off my chest and maybe I won't be as mad. But you can see the title of this episode is Juneteenth has become a cookout. All right, so let's get into it. So the Bible says that my people perish from lack of knowledge. And Black people, you are slowly killing yourselves. I heard someone say one time that Black people will celebrate anything as a reason to have a party. And Juneteenth has become one of those things. One of the other things that they celebrate to have a party is MLK Day. So in January, when we are supposed to be honoring Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., so many Black people throw parties, sometimes at strip clubs, and they make flyers and posters with Dr. King on it in a b-boy hat looking like a rapper, which is really just very disrespectful. And white people absolutely love it. They absolutely love it. They don't have to disrespect Dr. King. Y'all do it for him. You do it for him. And so we now come upon Juneteenth. Now, unless you lived in Texas, a lot of Black people did not know what Juneteenth was. I did not celebrate Juneteenth growing up. I lived in Virginia. I didn't live in Texas, and they barely taught us anything about Black history in school as it was. So they certainly didn't say anything about Juneteenth. So I will admit Juneteenth is fairly new to a lot of African American, a lot of American born Africans. Be that it may, do your research, do your homework, study to show thyself approved, something other than the Bible. Study your history so you know how to commemorate certain things. I had two presentations on yesterday, two events that I presented. I am a historian. I am a historical interpreter. I do interpretations in a first person narrative. For all of you that don't know what that is, that means I become the person that I'm speaking about and allow them to use me as a vessel to tell their stories. So yesterday I had two presentations. The first one was at Hampton History Museum. And I did the story of a woman named Martha Ann Fields. I've been telling her story, her family story, for about 12, 13 years now. It's one of my signature stories. In attendance in the audience, there was one Tubob and about maybe 20 Black people, African American. I told the story, and afterwards, we had a wonderful conversation about Juneteenth, about freedom and what it means to Black people in today's time, about how far we've come, how far we have to go, about how the rice roaches are still trying to trip us up, and they're doing things behind the scenes that we don't see until they're ready for it to manifest. We talked about how we need to get this information out to the communities. I told them that they're not going to teach it in school, so it's up to the parents and the grandparents to teach it at home. We had like a 40-minute conversation after I had done my presentation. It was amazing. It was wonderful. It is what Juneteenth is about: freedom. And if you don't have it, how to get it. Now, the two Bob that sat there, he came in, he sat down, he never opened his mouth, not one time. I don't even know if he applauded when I finished. I don't really care. But he sat there, and he sat there through the Q&A, through the dialogue that we were having. He never spoke to anybody in the audience. He never came up to me and said this was wonderful, informative, insightful. None of that. Came in, sat down, listened, observed, and left. I say he was a plant dispatcher, whatever it is you want to call him. I'm sure he went back to his Klansmen to tell them, hey, you know what? The Negroes are waking up. Some of them are realizing that they're still enslaved, and we will have to do something about it. So the first event was good. It was really, really good. Went to the second event. It was at Freedom Park in Williamsburg, Virginia. And I had to present again. Again, had to present Martha Ann Fields. I was told to get there early. The event started at 1, and I was told to get there early so that I could make sure that I got a good parking space. I said, okay. So it took me about 45 minutes to drive from Hampton to Williamsburg, and I got there probably around 12:30. So the event hadn't begun yet because it didn't start till 1. Found a parking space that wasn't too far from the event, and I met up with the gentleman who hired me to come out and do the presentation. And I walked in, and there were, of course, tents everywhere, and businesses that had their tents set up, and they were selling things, and so I said, where am I going to be presenting? And he said, up on the stage. I said, okay. And I'm like, is there a place for me to sit? And he said, yeah. I said, okay. Now, yesterday was hot. Friday was hot, and yesterday was hot. And they had the stage, and then they had chairs in front of the stage, but it wasn't under a tent. It was hot. And when I got there, he didn't tell me, that they had water for the presenters, nothing like that. He just told me where to go and said he was busy trying to do something else. And I get it. So I grabbed one of the chairs and I moved it over to the shady area under a tree so that I could at least be somewhat comfortable. So I'm sitting there. Now, the place, Freedom Park, uh, has like, um, I guess you could reconstruct it or refurbish, however you want to say it, dwellings where the Africans lived, the quarters, and they had a little place where representative of the kitchen. So I wasn't angry about that. I'm glad that's what they had because Juneteenth is commemorative of freedom from slavery, and the children needed to be reminded of this is what they lived in. And when I tell you, I have so much more. I mean, I didn't think my respect or love for my ancestors could get any stronger. But sitting outside in that heat yesterday and looking at those quarters, I have so much more respect for them and what they went through. Because when they were on the plantation, they couldn't escape the heat. They couldn't go sit under a tree. They were out there in that heat. Now, I ain't gonna lie. I swear to God, I think white people are messing up the ozone and that it's hotter than it was before because it was ridiculously hot yesterday. Every once in a while, it would get a little cloudy and the sun would move behind the clouds. But yeah, it was hot. Now, I wasn't supposed to go on until 3. I got there at 12:30 because I wanted to make sure I got a parking space close to the event and didn't have to walk so far. At 1 o'clock, the event had not started. About 1:15, we had an elder and his two children to pour libations, which I thought was wonderful for them to do that. And then, of course, they had a minister to open up with prayer. And then they had the mayor of, I guess, the city, I don't know if it was the city of Jamestown or Williamsburg, I don't know. But they had the white mayor to come up and I guess introduce Juneteenth, and he was reading it from his phone. And he was reading it as if they had just handed it to him as he was driving in. This is what you're going to, and this is what you have to say. And he was reading about Juneteenth, and he was just reading, I guess, from Wikipedia. I don't know. And he could barely see his phone. So finally, someone handed him some paper so he could read what Juneteenth was. So he finished up Juneteenth, telling Black people who probably didn't know what they were there for. And then the chief of police, who was also white, came on stage and he talked about how the communities and the police have to come together. And I'm like, yeah, because I'm sure we're tired of your Billy Club coming together with our heads. And so now we're into 15 minutes of this event, and two white people have spoken on Juneteenth. So now we begin the commemorative, presenters to come up and do their thing. The first guy that got up to do it was a black guy. All the presenters were black, except for the two Bobs at the beginning. But he gets up and he's a minister from a church. And this Negro did aerobics to a gospel song. Not once did he mention freedom or Juneteenth. He talked about the body being the temple and you have to be careful of the foods you ate. And I'm like, that's a perfect segue to talk about the foods of Juneteenth. But you didn't know, did you, bruh? You had no idea what your ancestors ate. You don't have a clue. Somebody told you to get up there and to showcase your talent and tell somebody about your ministry, and that's what you did. You probably didn't even know it was a Juneteenth celebration, did you, bruh? He ain't mentioned Juneteenth not one time. Not one daggone time. And the MC that was supposed to be there at 1 was stuck in traffic. So they were kind of waiting for him to get there. And I'm like, what y'all waiting for? Anybody can read a piece of paper that said coming to the stage. What the hell? So after bro got off doing aerobics, now again, it's 950,000 degrees outside. And you want somebody to do a goddamn jumping jack? Negro, are you crazy? Are you crazy? So then the next act were the reimagined Jackson 5. There were 5 kids, cute little kids, brothers. I think it was 2 girls and 3 boys. They were all siblings. But I'm like, okay, well, Jackson 5 back again. And they sang and danced to 4 songs. Not one of the songs was about freedom. Not one of the dances represented anything about Juneteenth. Not one. And so they finished. And I can't remember who came up next because by that time it was so hot, things had become a blur to me. I had some water, and this guy, oh, he came prepared. Bruh, he was an well, not elderly. He was an older gentleman. I don't even say older because I keep forgetting my age. He was handsome, I know that. And he had his chair, and he had the little thing where you put the umbrella, attach the umbrella to the chair, and he had the thing where you attach the fan to the chair. I said, well, damn. And the thing about it is, I'm sitting over there in the shade, and the shade keeps moving as the day goes on. The sun is moving, so the shade is moving where I can't even sit in the shade anymore. And he sets up his little concoction right in front of me, and I'm like, well, damn. And then he went to get something to eat, and he had this little mini, I guess it was a 1 foot table, 1 by 1 table, where he set his little meal on there and his drink. And when I tell you he was set up, I was like, well, damn, I'm thinking that next time I go somewhere, you can bet that. But the next act, I believe, was oh, they had some women there that owned a fitness organization here in Newport News, and they do carnival. You know, the owner of the organization is from Guyana, and so they do carnival things. And so when the kids got up to perform, their microphone wasn't working properly, so they had to get that together. And so that it wouldn't be just dead silence, the women from that organization got up and did some dances, some carnival dances, which I thought was beautiful. They were really, really beautiful. So after the kids, there was a little break in between, and then they got back up there again to do their um, their presentation. Again, nothing about Juneteenth, absolutely nothing. I mean, you're dancing, so maybe this would have been the chance to say something like, "Oh, I don't know, our ancestors didn't have the freedom to dance publicly like we do now. And so these dances we do in honor of those ancestors who were enslaved, that didn't have the freedoms that we have. Not a damn word about freedom or about the ancestors. Nothing. And the stage wasn't that big. Even the kids had trouble kind of moving around on the stage because it really wasn't that big. And then you bring, I don't know what, 8 grown women, and y'all up on stage, you can barely move. To us, it looked like y'all were just, you know, I don't know what, I don't know. But again, nothing about Juneteenth, nothing about freedom, nothing about the ancestors. There was one gentleman there. He had pulled up kind of in front of me, and he took his equipment out the back of his car, and he played the steel drums. And so he and I were talking, and he said, "Yeah, I play the steel drums." And he said, I'm anxious to do it because I want to talk about how the drums were the first thing that they took, one of the first things that they took from us, because we used to communicate with the drums. And I was like, okay, finally, somebody that's going to give an education that's not going to just entertain, but they're going to edutain. And I was waiting for him. But because they started late and the kids had a problem with their microphone, so now they're not 15 minutes behind. Now they're 30 minutes, almost 35 minutes behind. So the brother said, well, he had to leave. And I said, why aren't you performing? He said, I got to go to work. He was supposed to perform at 2:20, and it was 3 o'clock. And he was like, I got to be at work at 4. And that was in Virginia Beach. So he had to leave because it's going to take him an hour and a half to get to Virginia Beach. So he had to load his steel drums right back in the car again. So it's getting closer now. Again, I was supposed to go on at 3. It's 3, and there's still uh 3 other acts in front of me. They weren't supposed to be though. They moved some people that were scheduled around 4 to go on first because they said they had to leave, because the guy came over and asked me, he said, do you have to leave? And I should have said yes. I should have said yes. But I said no. And he said, okay. So 3 other acts went up before me. They went up before me that was supposed to be after me. So I didn't go up until a little after 4. And by the time I got up there, I was tired. I was hungry. I was hot, weather-wise, and just disgusted at the event. I was disgusted because it was nothing more than a party. There was one Juneteenth flag. There was one Pan African flag, the RBG, and that's it. They had two food vendors. One had a vegan option, was a vegan food truck, and the other one was a soul food truck. But neither one had any foods that were connected to Juneteenth. Of course, they had vendors that were selling their business, but they also had vendors that worked in the community, that were like healthcare and stuff like that. And all of the vendors that were like, they had Centera there, that was the healthcare, and the booth was manned by four white women. Um, they had voter registration, and that was manned by three white women. And they had, um, it was a third one. Centera. Oh, they had three white women that were selling books. And of course, the books were about African Americans, like The Hate You Give, Michael Harriot's book. And it was a few more. I didn't even look at them because, so to me, it just kind of looked like we still have to go to them to be able to read. We have to go to them for our health. We have to go to them for permission to vote. So I'm like, these companies, this would have been your time to send your diversity and inclusion person to this event and not you. So when Martha Ann got up to do her thing again, I was tired, I was hungry, I was hot. And I only had 20 minutes to do her story, which is impossible. And so I told her story, but I added a lot of things within her story that didn't necessarily was part of her story, but part of our story. I mentioned the patty rollers because I saw a couple of police officers. And so when I mentioned the patty rollers in her story, I said, yeah, the patty rollers were on my trail. I seen a couple of them walking through early and I got a little nervous. But Black people, what saddens me the most about Juneteenth is that those who didn't know what it was and had never heard of it heard about it through the thin, pasty, white mayonnaise, vial spilling, 45, Shitler, Trump. Remember, he was supposed to do an event in Texas, and they wouldn't allow it because they were honoring, commemorating Juneteenth. And he spoke about it. And that's when Black people that didn't know about it heard about it. The other 50% of Black people that had never heard about it and still didn't hear about it through Shitler still don't know about it or don't care. You just go to the event because you know it's going to be food and vendors and music. And you walked away not knowing any more than you did about Juneteenth when you got there. I didn't see anyone put on social media that their church was doing anything about Juneteenth. Y'all black Christians still scared of the white Jesus, ain't you? I swear to God. We ain't never gonna get ahead. As a people, we ain't never gonna get ahead. Because y'all the most scariest people I ever seen in my life. Now the title of my YouTube channel is We Are Our Ancestors. I might have to change that. Because damn if that's so, our ancestors won't scared of shit. They won't scared of anything. But y'all are so afraid that the white people won't like you if you truly embrace your culture. Ugh. Y'all make me sick. I'm gonna wrap it up because I'm getting mad all over again. Juneteenth is Wednesday. Do yourself a favor. Please research it. And don't just research it from and study it from a white person's perspective of what it is. Because they're going to tell you that General Granger rode into Texas and told black people that they were free. And until he got there, they ain't know nothing about it. People, do you think that Texas like set out in the middle of the ocean? You do know that Texas connect with other states, right? Other states that knew about freedom. So you don't think nobody in Texas, in Galveston, Texas, knew that they were free? They're not going to tell you the stories of the revolts that happened there because they don't want you to know. They want you they want to paint the picture of a white hero riding in and telling them that they were free. They don't even talk about the colored troop that rode in with General Granger. They don't even tell you about the colored troop. It had to be this white man. First it was Lincoln, then it was Granger. What the hell? And also, I want you to know that even June 19th is not the mark of the ending of slavery. It was December 6th, I believe, 1865, when the 13th Amendment was added. I'm making a face. You can't see it, but I'm making a face. But stop cooning for these people. Stop and learn about your heritage and your culture. In black churches, for the love of God, please stop being so afraid. I know the ones that are afraid. The ones that are afraid of saying anything about black culture or celebrating MLK or Black History Month or Juneteenth or any of those or Kwanzaa or anything like that. Y'all are the ones that are getting grant funding from the government to put toward your programs like Alcohol Anonymous and Drug Anonymous and prison ministries and things like that that you're supposed to go out in the community and help people, but you don't. You take the money and do something else with it. But I know you're underneath that banner of getting funds from the government through the Faith-Based Initiative Act, and so you don't want to do anything to ruin your money. Pastor need a new Benz, so yeah, I got to keep that money flowing in. So I get it. Y'all scared. It's okay. It's okay. It's all right. It's all right. I'm gonna end this now. So look, you know the drill. Love yourself. Love each other. Give yourself some grace. Give each other some grace. Stay healthy. Stay safe. Stay black. And for the love of God, please study your history. Please understand what your ancestors went through. All right. Peace, people.